Tottenham, please.
Hello and welcome to the Jers TV on what is a bit of a crazy night. We've got some breaking news. Muscat will not be the manager of Glasgow Rangers Football Club. I'm delighted to be joined by Gordy. How are you, mate?
Stunned.
Yeah.
It's the best way to describe it, mate.
I know, mate. What is going on? And Lewis, how are you doing, mate?
I'm the same, mate. I just absolutely skinned.
Yeah, I know. Where do we
Absolutely.
even start? Shall we start with the news then? So, as is reported from all of the big journalists, you've got Chris Jack reporting it, and it's all over Sky Sports now as well, that Kevin Muscat will not be the Rangers manager. I think right now I'm just sick to death of Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell. Clearly, there's two managers that have been close to getting this job. You've got Steven Gerrard and Kevin Muscat, and both of them should have been nailed on to become the next Rangers manager. They've both been at the club before, clearly have an affection for the club. Steven Gerrard loves the club, and they were at advanced stages, both of them. But as soon as they get in contact with Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, it seems like they just changed their minds and they don't want it anymore. Gordy, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm just doing some kind of admin work here for sharing and stuff, but I'm still in a state of shock, to be perfectly honest, guys. It's terrible. It's becoming farcical, to be perfectly honest. What is going on? That's the question. The talks between both managers so far are breaking down at a certain point, and there's something wrong here.
Mm-hmm. I know it seems to be, both of them get to the advanced stages, and then something is happening. What do you think is going wrong in those discussions, Lewis?
I think it's just purely down to managers want the first say in recruitment, to be honest. I think Kevin Thelwell's in charge of this club, in charge of the recruitment. Of course, I mean, I get it, he's the head of recruitment, but at the same time, he's got too much say in what goes on actually in the dressing room and out the dressing room as well. Like, supposedly Russell Martin's tactics are apparently influenced by Kevin Thelwell. I don't know if that's true, if that's just rumours or not. But I mean, you had Steven Gerrard fly all the way from Bahrain to London, so he clearly wanted the Rangers job. But then as soon as Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell go down there, he's like, nah, not having any. And then it seems to be the same way. Muscat, I mean, I'm not surprised at all that he's taking his name out of it, because no manager will want to work under Kevin Muscat, and even Kevin Thelwell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart. So, I mean, what they're looking for, they're just looking for just a yes man, to be honest. That's what they're looking for. At this rate, it's just going to be some average Championship or League One manager at this rate. That's all I can see happening now.
Yeah, but I completely agree with you. They are looking for a yes man, right? They want someone to just listen to them and take orders from them, and and let them deal with the signing of the players, and they just have to make the players work, essentially. Because if you look at that Shamiti deal that we did in the summer, I can't for the life of me, and I won't accept that Russell Martin said yes, we need to go for the Shamiti guy. For me, that is definitely a Kevin Muscat. I'm taking after you now, Lewis. That's a Kevin Thelwell signing, right? And clearly there's definitely something dodgy going on with that transfer, in my opinion. But he wants the manager to come in and just take orders from him, let him build the squad in his own vision, and just focus on the coaching. But I feel like it has to be a collaborative effort. You cannot have a manager that doesn't have any say in signings whatsoever, right? Because at the end of the day, they have to feel like they can get the best out of that player, and feel like that they're gonna be able to play the football that he wants to play. But I'm also of the opinion that it can't just be on the manager to buy the players, because if that manager goes, you've then got to find another manager that has to deal with a squad that is so designed for one particular style of play. But for me, it just stinks of Kevin Thelwell wanting too much power, and just really taking the club for a ride. You know, it's like he's just wasting our money on players that are not even anywhere near good enough. You know, and we wasted 35 million and we're sixth in the league. Like, how are they not being held to? Russell Martin has got the sack, right? But now it needs to be them two idiots in Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart that the games now, and it was like that at the weekend, you know, and I just can't see a way or a world in which they can recover from this situation. They shouldn't be allowed to. What do you think Andrew Kavanagh should be doing now? You know, what must be going through his head, Gordy?
I can't even begin to imagine what's going through anyone's head right now at the board level and the chief executive level. So I think we need to strip it back a little bit and work out. So what is the actual structure of a club at the moment? Kevin Thelwell's title is sporting director. That's correct, isn't it? He's what's called sporting director. Mm-hmm. Now, what is he responsible for on a day-to-day basis? Is he responsible for player recruitment, or is he responsible for the financial running of the club, the scouting running of the club? Right now, as you said, Jay, it should be a collaborative effort. Okay, there should be the manager, the head of recruitment, the sporting director, chief executive, whatever else wants to get involved. They have a meeting, 3 months before the transfer window, and they go, when Russell Martin comes into the club, and Russell Martin says to them, okay, here's a style of play I want, here's the tactics that I want. I don't believe we've got the right players at the club right now. Here's a model, or here's the type of players I want. The recruitment team then goes away. The sporting director then tells them the budget, etc., the wage budget, the transfer budget. They go away, they scout players, they get together a short list, and they go to the short list, back to the manager, and they say, here's the players that we think fit. What players do you want us to further pursue or scout further? Right now, what it seems to be happening is Russell Martin or the manager may or may not be going to the sport director and say, here's the kind of players I want, and Thelwell and Patrick Stewart, or possibly just Thelwell, are going out and buying them and saying, here's the players that we've bought that we think, or I think, fit your model of playing. Mm-hmm. And that's what seems to be happening. I don't think for 1 second there's anything dodgy about the Slamiti deal. I just think it's very pure judgment. And I think that it just shows the level of incompetence of somebody like Thelwell at our club. I think he's thought to himself, here's a guy who signed the Everton for 15 million. His value's dropped, but he might be worth more in a couple of years, so let's spend £8 million on him. That's all I believe that's happened with that. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. However, a new manager's getting spoken to. The initial discussions are going well. Are you interested? It's Glasgow Rangers. Here's the expectations. Can you match it? Yes. And then they go, right, okay, the next meeting, stage 2 then, or stage 3, is get to know the executive board, get to know the day-to-day people in charge, and then sign the contract. They're making the people in charge day-to-day, and they're going, no, I don't want anything to do with that. And that's it. So that's the issue. And it's because, sorry to go on, just to finish off, Thelwell, I think, is wanting to build a dynasty and a legacy, and he wants complete control of all football operations, and he wants, as you guys have both said, a manager to train the players, coach the players, take the games, and that's it.
Yeah, Lewis, do you think right that Kevin Thelwell has been given too much power in terms of the players or the people that he's bringing into the club? Because if you look at it, the structure that he's built right at the club, you've got his son as like the head of recruitment, etc., and you've got all the people that he knew from his Everton days coming in to be head scout and then filling in other positions. Do you feel like he's almost making himself unsackable, because if he goes, he might be taking the rest of the structure with him as well? Therefore, not only would we need to go and bring in a new sporting director, but we'd also need to go and bring in a new head of recruitment, a head scout, etc., because they'll probably potentially follow Kevin Thelwell into his next position.
Yeah, well, I think. Oh, sorry. Oh.
No, you go, Lewis, sorry.
No, I think it's very fair to say that Kevin Thelwell has way too much power in Rangers. I mean, even if it's not him hiring his son, the fact that he's influencing this board into hiring his son, it's laughable, to be honest. It's an absolute shambles. This is the stuff that you see at Sunday League clubs where the manager's picking his boy in the starting lineup over their best player or whatever. Like, this is Sunday League stuff that we're seeing. No Glasgow Rangers. This isn't what you see from arguably Britain, one of Britain's or one of the world's biggest clubs. So yeah, I mean, when you say that he's making himself unsackable, it's a fair point. You make a fair point. I've never actually thought about it like that. You could be right. That if he goes, basically everyone goes. Of course, there was the rumour before that Kevin Thelwell said that if Russell Martin left the club, then Thelwell would go as well. But I think that was deemed to be false. So it's tough to say. I mean, well, I don't think it's tough to say that he has too much power, but I think whether he's making himself unsackable, I mean, as I said, you make a good point, but I honestly don't know. It's a tough situation.
But then if you look at the January window coming up, right, and you look at the summer window, we have spent like £35 million, right, on this squad,
Yep.
and we are sixth in the league, 9 points out from the first 8 games, still yet to win a game at Ibrox. Ange Postecoglou has been sacked twice since the last time that we've actually won a game in the league at Ibrox, which is just absolutely incredible, right? How have we got into this position? And Gordon, if you were Andrew Kavanagh, would you really trust these idiots with another 20-30 million to spend next summer? I mean, what have they shown us so far that they're capable of building a squad good enough to win the league?
So I'm going to try and take a step back, and I'm just going to say this up front. I'm not defending Thelwell, absolutely all right. So there's no need for any comments from Wendy about defending Thelwell. However, from Thelwell's point of view, he's been given this role, so he's been told when he's come into the club, you're responsible for this, this, and that. So Thelwell might just think he's doing his job. He's been told. There's no doubt in my mind now that he's been told when he's in the club, here's your title, this is what you're responsible for. And Thelwell doesn't want to give that up. Thelwell obviously enjoys having that power, influence, whatever you want to call it. But when he's come to this club, he's came to this club to sign a contract, to have certain responsibilities and certain influence and power over a lot of things. And he obviously doesn't want to relinquish that. So that's why there's a breakdown in negotiations with new managers. Russell Martin was happy to come in under that model. But Kevin Muscat and Steven Gerrard are not a team manager, clearly. So Thelwell is just what he thinks. He probably does genuinely believe he thinks he's doing what's best for the club under his remit. That's
a worry though. Like if he thinks he's doing what's best for the club, I mean, has he not looked at the league table? Like, has he not seen the performances? I mean, obviously he's not going to sack himself, but at what point do we get to the situation where his position just becomes untenable? At the minute, I feel like his position is already untenable. Surely there's no way back, is there? And I'm just going to get to some of the comments now. James 5, who is running our club? Well, I think Andrew Kavanagh has clearly given Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell the license to make football decisions because he believes them to be the footballing experts that he's brought in to run this football club. But the only thing that they're going to do is completely erase, right, the last, we haven't won enough trophies, right, over the last number of years since Gerrard came, right? Since Gerrard came in 2018, we've not won anywhere near enough. However, we still had a certain level of performance, especially in Europe, where we showed ourselves to be the big club that we are. And they, in this very short period of time, are completely erasing all of the work that we've done over the last few years in sort of re-establishing ourselves at the top table, really, in terms of being able to compete with some of the big clubs around Europe, and becoming a shambles. And they need to sort this out quickly, and they need to get rid of those two idiots, Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell. Some more comments here from Peter McCready. These guys have turned the situation into an absolute shambles. Even the bookies, Betfair and Sky Bet, have removed betting on the next manager. Even the bookies are giving up. They have no idea what's going on. We have no idea what's going on. It's just an absolute shambles. So, Lewis, who would you turn to next? Who do you think is going to be the next manager? Whilst we talk, I'll get up the next manager odds onto the stage. Who do you think is going to be the next man?
Right, let me have a look at this. Right, okay, you've got Danny Rowe, you've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Steven Gerrard, it won't be Barry Ferguson, I doubt it. Derek McInnes, it won't be Sean Dyche, and Kevin Muscat, of course, it won't be. And Neil McCann, which absolutely not. Not as a full-time manager, anyways. I genuinely couldn't tell you. I mean, Danny Rowe is the first one that comes to mind, but of course he's taken his name out of it, so I honestly don't know. I mean, the fans are constantly getting their hopes up. We got our hopes up with Gerrard. We thought it was all but done. Then the deal was off, obviously, well, probably because of Thelwell and Patrick Stewart. And then you've got the Muscat deal, which we all thought was set in stone. We all thought that was there. We all thought Neil McCann was going to be the interim manager for Saturday, and then if not, he'd be in the door by Monday. Then we'd have Muscat by next month. Nope. Once again, no. I don't. I genuinely. I can still see this process going on for at least another couple of weeks. To be honest, I mean, it's. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you who I think is going to be the next Rangers manager because I've genuinely lost hope. Because I mean, if the bookies are losing hope, then how can you expect me to retain some?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking at that list there, Steven Gerrard. I mean, the only way Steven Gerrard now becomes our manager if Kevin Thelwell gets removed from position. Kevin Muscat's the exact same boat as Steven Gerrard now. Barry Ferguson won't get it.
Yeah.
If they were going to give it to him, they would have given it to him in the summer. Derek McInnes, I mean, he's 13 points above us at the minute. He's 5 points top of the league. He could be going 8 points top next weekend. There's absolutely no chance he's gonna want to leave because yes, we are a bigger club, a miles bigger club in my opinion. But at the same time, he could leave now. He could leave Hearts, come to us, not make the impact that he'd hope. Hearts end up bottling the league, so have to go and win the league. And then next season doesn't make an impact and gets sacked, and then he'll always think about this season as being why did I leave when I was 5-8 points top of the league or whatever he's going to be in the next week, So why would you leave? Sean Dyche, I think he's going to be the next Nottingham Forest manager. Neil McCann's not going to get it. So then you're sort of left with the top two. I know Paul Scholes mentioned in an interview that he did maybe last week that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had that interview with Rangers. I don't know really what the outcome of that was, but he's an interesting choice. I feel like when he was at United, he actually did a lot better than managers have done since he got sacked. He got them to third and second in the league, to the Europa League final, which is good compared to where they've been finishing lately. I think they finished 15th last season. So I wouldn't be 100% against it, but at the same time, I'm like, if we're going down that route, I'm going to be a bit worried. And Danny Rowe again, he took his name out of the hat last week, because I think he was even fed up with the club and the communication that he was getting from the club as well. So where does that leave us? Because looking at all those names in the list, I wouldn't be confident going for any of them. I think the one name not on that list that I would really get behind is Frank Lampard, because it's the thing that he's doing at the minute. It's really. I think he's doing a really good job, and he's scoring a lot of goals, free-flowing football, which you want to see. And plus, he said in I think it was like pre-match press conference last week that he grew up a Rangers supporter and loves the club, which is always good and well with the fans. So he'll have the fans on side immediately, I feel, and I feel like he's in that same mold as Steven Gerrard. But I don't think he'll come. I don't think he will come yet. I don't think he'll want to work with Kevin Thelwell either. So, Gordy, what are your thoughts on that list?
I was just going to come back and say, in my opinion, there's no way in hell Lampard would leave top of the Championship commentary right now and come to Rangers. I mean, there's absolutely no way. We're going to struggle to get a decent manager. As you said at the top of the show, about having to settle for a second-rate manager. If Rangers persist with this setup at the club, then that's what we're going to have to endure. And I think we're going to have to endure a terrible season just to get rid of Thelwell and Stewart now. Do I necessarily tar Stewart with the same brush? I'm not sure, because I don't know what Stewart's job is. However, if it's Patrick Stewart's job to recruit and keep a sporting director, a football manager at the club, etc., then he has to go as well. I just don't know what the power balance is between Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart. I would say that being a chief executive, Patrick Stewart should be in charge. So it's really up to Patrick Stewart to swing the axe on Thelwell. And if Patrick Stewart wants to stay at the club and get the fans behind him, if it's at all possible now, he has to sack Thelwell. Now, will he? Because that's the bottom line now. If we want a decent manager or a manager with a half decent reputation, then either Thelwell is going to have to relinquish some control, or we're going to have to settle for a coaching manager, a manager that's just focused on the coaching aspect, which I don't really know if there's a similar one I can think of at the moment that fits that model, to be perfectly honest, that we would accept.
I also don't feel like that is what the club needs. The club needs a figurehead, the club needs someone that they know is in control, so a leader, a real leader. And that's what they said, the owner said in their statement, is what they were looking for, a real leader, not someone who has to sit and listen to Kevin Thelwell's orders and do as he's told. That's not what we need, at all. So let me go to a few more of the comments then. David Baird said, "What bloody shambles this is becoming." You are absolutely right. David McCready, bottom line is these guys have autonomy within the club. Point in case is the appointment of his son, who has less certification than most youth team managers who have completed the SFA courses. Look, I cannot understand how he was allowed into the club. How was that even possible in first place? How there's a reason. A lot of big businesses don't hire people's sons into those type of roles, because it upsets the apple cart. Other people within the club will only think only feel that he's got the job because of who his dad is, and it doesn't. I don't think it works out well, and I feel like people are going to be doubting him from the start, like we all are. As soon as that news came out, we were like, what on earth is going on here? I feel like it's put unnecessary pressure on the whole situation by doing it, and it's a man that's already under pressure, and it just doesn't look right, in my opinion. We've got a comment here from Alan Grant Dunaki. I'm sorry if I completely butchered that pronunciation. Thelwell and Stewart are a cancer that needs to be cut out of our club. If not, then Kavanagh and Marat are Craig White 2.0. And I couldn't agree more. They are literally a cancer that we need to get rid of ASAP. The longer they are at this club, the more damage they're going to do. Look at the shambles of the last 2 weeks. How are we going into a European game on Thursday night? And it's going to be Stevie Smith that's going to be taking the team over to Norway. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace, what's currently happening. But Lewis, who would you want to replace Kevin Thelwell? Let's say Kevin Thelwell gets sacked tomorrow, which would be a dream. Who would you bring in to replace him? Do you have any names on your list?
Yeah, well, the only one that I can actually think of right now is Davy Weir, who recently left his post at Brighton as head of recruitment, I believe, or head of scouting. I can't remember what the exact title was, but it would basically be the same role as Kevin Thelwell. That's actually why I thought he left Brighton. I actually thought that he was going to come for the Rangers job, well, not the Rangers job, but for the job of sporting director at Rangers. I thought that's what was going to happen. I'm surprised it didn't. I think we need a sporting director who knows exactly what the club needs. It's all well and good saying that we need more Rangers men in the door. We do. Don't get me wrong, we do. But that can't just be players and managers. That needs to be folk who know, like folk who are going to be in charge of bringing the players in now. Because it looks as if Rangers aren't going to get a manager anytime soon. It's going to be all this head coach stuff, which I don't agree with. But that's something entirely different. It looks as if it's going to be a head coach. So if we're going to be hiring someone to bring in players that Rangers need. I think it's a no-brainer to bring in somebody who's had previous history with Rangers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I wanted him to come in before we appointed Kevin Thelwell. I thought he was a no-brainer. However, I thought it would be really difficult to get him out of Brighton. The fact that he's no longer employed, it's like, what are we doing? You know, like,
Aye.
let's go and get him.
Aye.
Like, what are we waiting for? He's a guy who knows what the club's all about, knows Scottish football, knows what it takes to win at the club, and knows what kind of characters we need. You know, what kind of players we need to handle the pressure of playing for us, because it's a pressure like no other. You know, and Jack Butland said this after the game at the weekend. You know, there is a mentality problem at the club, and the people don't seem to really, and you know, I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying things like, the people aren't putting in like the shift every day. You know, you can't just expect to turn up at the weekend and perform. So I feel like it's an everyday thing at the club. There are no standards, right? There's no one driving the standards within the dressing room. You know, we're not bringing in the right characters, the players that can deal with this. And I just feel like we're really, honestly, we are so far away from where we need to be, and we've completely wasted 35 million on players that don't look up for it, and we're going to keep wasting more money the longer that these two, as Alan put it, cancers are in the club. Moving on to some more comments now. Ollie's at the wheel. I would literally take him now. You know, at least we'll have an actual manager in charge. I want Barry, a man who won't reject us, but if Stewart and Thelwell get sacked, then I think it'll be Gerrard. The thing is, Barry Ferguson, right? Like, we would all love him to if he did get the job, to be a success, because you know what a great guy, and he is the sort of leader that we're after. I just don't think it would work. What are your thoughts on that, Gordy? Do you think Barry would be a success?
Just a couple of things I want to just pick up on, then get to that. I'd 100% take David Weir at the club over Kevin Thelwell in a heartbeat. I mean, really would. But I think we need to look a bit higher up at the owners now, because they've obviously got franchises. They've got Leeds United, they've got the 49ers, obviously the big health company.
You bring my phone charger in, please?
And they've got a certain way of doing things which works for these different organisations. I don't think they've maybe understood and appreciated the demands and nuances of a club like Rangers. I don't think they've appreciated, because Kevin Thelwell would come to our club and he would not expect to be hijacked at a hotel. That would be a complete shock to him. They don't I think they've misjudged the passion. I think they've misjudged the responsibility they've got as owners of our great club. And I think that, you know, I look back to when the 49ers took over and we were all, you know, salivating. We were all, you know, foaming at the mouth in joy. We really were. We were really, really all so excited. And, you know, that's only 4 months ago. Do you know? That feels like a lifetime. That's only 4 months ago. And 4 months, all the feel-good factor, all the, feel-good factor, all the expectation, all the, you know, willing to give these new owners a chance, everything's just dried up. And the fans have now got no patience with the board. They've got no patience and no respect for the chief executive or the sporting director. Whoever comes into the club as manager is going to be third or fourth choice. And that's going to go well for the new manager, because they'll know they're third or fourth choice. It's very publicly now they're third or fourth choice. So how much respect are the fans going to give to anyone that comes in that is publicly now third or fourth choice? It's embarrassing and it's shambolic. And the owners, Thelwell and Stewart, probably think they're doing a good job. They've been given this remit by the chairman. They have, and we all think it's a piss take, and we all know how bad it is. But they've been given that remit. So until that remit is taken away, until that remit is taken away from them, they'll just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, because that's what they think their job is, and that is what their job is.
there is no way that they could possibly think that they're doing a good job. I mean, they must be panicking. Surely they must be looking at the performance levels, thinking
But
we did
I'll
not
tell
think
you
we
why.
were signing players this bad. You know, I think they've had a big shock that they've thought, oh, championship players, League One players, if you can get the best of the championship or good championship players and the best of League One, you know, you're gonna walk the league, and it's just not the case. The football in this country is so different to anything down south. Yes, you might have players more technical, have more technical ability in the championship, right, than you do in the Scottish League. But it's about fight, that heart, that desire, that is what makes it in Scottish football. They don't have that down south, right, in the championship. There's also a lot more space to play, so it's easier to look good, when you've got acres of spaces to run into. But in Scotland, again, it's different. We have to break down low blocks. We need players that have the composure on the ball to be able to do that when you're into the last 5 minutes of a game, But we don't have any of that. It's fantastic.
Just to
we
go
got
back,
to the last few minutes of the game against Dundee United at the weekend, and we couldn't even get a hold of the ball. It was like Magoma gave the ball away. I think it might be 92nd minute, and then we didn't really get the ball back after that. We should be, controlling the game at that point for sure, and trying to and creating chance after chance after chance. But this team doesn't have that in them. Once we got the 2-2, I thought this is where you'd expect a team that a confident team and a team that wants to challenge the titles to go on and win it. But we didn't even look close to winning after that. And if it wasn't for Jack Butland, we would have lost the game in the dying minutes. So it's just. Yeah, there's no chance they can sit here and think that they're doing a good job, because that would be a huge work as well.
So I'm just going to come back on that point, right? Because I think it's very important, right? I'm not saying they're doing a good job, okay?
No.
However, what I would say is they must think they're doing a good job, because I'll tell you why. Let me say two things. Because A, they haven't been sacked yet, okay? B, three things actually. B, they seem to be heavily involved again in the recruitment of a new manager. Okay, and C, they're not prepared. They're not prepared to change their approach to the way Rangers are run at the moment. So that says to me that they must think, or the board, the people above them must think, that the way we're doing it right now is the way forward. I think it's terrible and it's awful and it's ridiculous. But if you take a step back and look objectively at it, they haven't been sacked. They haven't. They're still involved in the recruitment of a manager, even though the board said they were doing it. Or Patrick came out and said he was going to be doing it, which obviously isn't true. And then three, they're keeping the same setup. They're not prepared to relinquish control or sacrifice some of their own influence. So that tells me, looking objectively at it, that they think they're doing a good job, and that's terrible. So,
and that's the biggest worry, though. It's that last point there. Then they're not willing to relinquish a bit of power, but it's that's scaring these managers away, because everything's rosy and everything is going swimmingly, and we've got Steven Gerrard flying in from Bahrain or wherever he was living and saying, I really want this job. Well, how can we make it work? Has a conversation with Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, and it's like, nah, that's not for me. The exact thing then goes and happens with Muscat. Everything's going well. They're just agreeing the final details. They have these conversations with Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, not for me. I mean, but what I can't quite understand is surely, at the start of the discussion. So if they're talking to to Kavanagh, right? At the very start, the first conversation, surely you're talking about the structure of the club that you've just implemented, and that you've got Kevin Thelwell as sporting director, and they must be happy with the structure. But then it must be when they actually meet him that they go, this guy is an absolute clown. He has no idea what he's talking about. I don't want any part of this. Steven Gerrard said, leaving the door open for the future. That means get rid of this guy and come back to me. That's exactly what that means. So the writing's on the wall. He has got to go, and he has got to go now. I just want to go to some more comments quickly. Hearts fan joining us. Thank you. Hi, Rangers fans. Hope everyone as well. Initially with a sad face and then with a smiley face. Cheers, mate. Do you know what, right? I feel like I want, we're 13 points behind. I don't feel like we're going to catch Hearts this season. We can't string 2 wins together. Yeah, let alone string enough wins together.
we can't try and win one together.
And that's it. We got 1 win all season, so in the league. So for me, I just I'll be if Hearts go 8 points clear at the weekend. For us, it's just try and get second place, because if we beat Killy and we go 5 points behind them, you just never know, because they are awful, right? We are bad, and they're equally as bad as us, really. If you look at it, look at the Old Firm. It was a 0-0 ball fest. 2 terrible teams. So this is Hearts' year, in my opinion. And to be honest, I do hope they do it. Stephen McPhee, McInnes or Gerrard, that's it. And then goes on to say McInnes won't leave Hearts, so Gerrard or nothing. Yeah, McInnes absolutely won't leave, in my opinion. Robert Binney, I'll say it again, Thelwell has underestimated Scottish football. They haven't been sacked yet, Gordy, but that's 2 of the front runners turned us down. It is, so where do we turn? Where do we turn to now? Lewis, I was having this thought I think it might have been an hour before we went live. Is it a coincidence that Ange Postecoglou was sacked by Nottingham Forest on the Saturday, and all of a sudden Kevin Muscat doesn't want the job on the Sunday? Do you think Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart might have thought we want to pause this for a second, because we might want to chat to someone like Ange Postecoglou, and Kevin Muscat has then been like, no, I'm not having this. See you later. Because if you think about it, Ange Postecoglou has obviously been here too long ago and was very successful here. I don't think he would personally come to us in ever. There's no world where that happens. I think he's probably looking at the other half of the city, thinking Rodgers might be leaving at the end of the season. I'll have a bit of a break. I had a big payout from Nottingham Forest, and I might join them again in the summer. But do you think there's anything in that?
Nah, I doubt it, to be honest. I don't see Ange Postecoglou coming to Rangers. Absolutely not. Would I take him tactically as a manager? I mean, yeah, why not? I mean, he's obviously played a very, very high press, very attacking football at Celtic. As much as it never really worked in Europe, but it worked domestically, and I think that's what we need. But personally, no, I wouldn't want him as manager, and I don't think it's any sort of coincidence. I don't think they're going to be considering Ange Postecoglou. I think if anything, it's going to be nearer Ange Postecoglou returning to Celtic at the end of the season if Brendan Rodgers goes, which I don't see happening. But you know, so no, I don't. I think it is just a bit of a coincidence. I don't see Ange Postecoglou coming to Rangers, I must say.
Yeah, but I would take him, to be honest. Because he has won won titles here, and he's got that the know-how of how to beat teams in this league. But again, like I said before, I absolutely do not think he would come. But it would be interesting, and just the meltdown from the other half of the city, if that was to happen, would just be
I was gonna say, if Celtic fans are raging right now, imagine what they're going to be like if Ange Postecoglou comes to Rangers.
Oh, I know. I mean, honestly, the most entitled fan base in the world. Right,
the East End of Glasgow is going to be like the Gaza Strip.
So next one, Alan, fan protests will soon turn into fan violence against the board of directors, and I agree. I mean, if you look at the scene in the hotel with Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart being spoken to by the fans, I mean, that could have turned violent. Gordy, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to turn violent?
Well, first of all, we need to be careful what we say, and people need to be a little bit possibly restraining their comments. We know passions run high, emotions run high, but there's absolutely no way we can advocate any sort of violence against anyone at the club. That's beyond the line for anyone at Gels TV, I think, to encourage. So we need to be careful with that. However, that said, Alan's made a point that's probably just an indication of how much pain and anguish we're going through, and that is directed at Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart right now. There's no getting away from that. And if Thelwell and Stewart continue to behave in the way that they're behaving and the decisions that they're making, it is only going to get worse. And yeah, I think things will escalate. But what that escalates into, I don't really know. But I think you'll find that Thelwell and Stewart will start coming to less and less games, and they certainly won't travel with the team anywhere. and that's a really sad indicator, and that should be the biggest indicator, to them about their competency. But they will be aloof for that, and they will think, oh, those Rangers fans, we know what's best, kind of thing. And I really think it's going to be really difficult for. Well, first of all, there's no way Ange Postecoglou will come to Rangers right now. There's no way a manager of Ange's stature will come and work under Thelwell, right, and have no control over transfers, etc. Right? If Gerrard and Muscat have turned it down, then Postecoglou's going to turn it down. We wouldn't come anyway. But I'd recommend that one. It'd be funny but we shouldn't appoint managers just based on the kind of comedy value of it. Really, do I think he's going to be a good manager? Yes. Would it work out to Rangers? Probably not. So, however, my question to you guys is, how much confidence are you going to have when we appoint a new manager in 2 or 3 weeks' time now, probably, when it is going to be our third, fourth, maybe fifth choice manager? Will you guys be able to get behind that guy, whoever it is?
Well, for me, I'm going to get behind whoever the next manager is, right? Because I want us to be a success. However, it's not going to instill confidence in me that this is the guy to bring the glory days back, right? And I feel like a lot of the fans are going to feel the same way. As soon as results start to go south, it's just going to be protest after protest, boo after boo after boo after every game, and it's just going to be another untenable situation. Look at what happened to Russell Martin. I mean, he lasted 122 days, and he was leaving. In a car, wasn't even allowed on the team bus after the game against Falkirk, had to go into a separate car, sort of escorted out by security. That's how that situation ended. We need to get someone into this role who's got the confidence and that aura about him to take this job on. At the minute, I feel like Gerrard would have had that, and Muscat would have had that. All the other names on that list, I can't see having that, So no, the next manager that comes in will not give me confidence unless it's one of them two, and it's not going to be one of them two. What are your thoughts?
Because we are looking at somebody like the stature of, no disrespect, I think he's a great coach for what he's done so far in his career, but we are looking at somebody along the lines of Stephen Robinson. That's where we are as a club.
But it's an interesting one because it's like it goes back to, early noughties, right? When Dick Advocat left and we got Alex McLeish. I mean, Alex McLeish wasn't exactly like, a renowned manager, someone that, got the fans excited, but he did go and win a domestic double and then won the treble, right? So it can work, and he was manager of Motherwell and then manager of Hibs. So it can work, right? Going for just someone in the Scottish League who understands the club, understands the league and what's required. You never know, it could be a masterstroke. But I feel like it is a big risk at the time, because the fans are hungry for success. They're desperate for success. We deserve it for everything that we've gone through, right? It's such a huge risk to take. I feel like having Gerrard or Muscat would have been the least riskiest options, but they're obviously not happening. So, what are your thoughts on that, Lewis? Would you take him, Robinson?
Yeah, well, I've spoken to Jared before. I would absolutely take Stephen Robinson as manager, and I disagree with Gordy with your point saying this is where we are as a club. Because even if we were in a better position and we'd sacked a manager or a manager had left, I still think Stephen Robinson is a good option to look at purely based on the domestic success he has had at Motherwell and St Mirren, albeit, yes, not won much if he's won anything. But him taking a club like St Mirren into European spots in the Scottish Premiership is unbelievable. It's a fantastic achievement for the club, for the players, and for Stephen Robinson as a manager. So I would absolutely take Stephen Robinson as a manager. I do kind of agree with Gordy's point that he made, actually, I think a week or two ago on the channel, when he mentioned that I think that we would probably take Stephen Robinson if we were at the beginning of a season, if we were just about to approach pre-season. I would probably agree with that. But he's a manager I certainly wouldn't be disappointed with. But I'm going to go back to Gordy's question before when he was saying, do I have confidence in a manager who was the manager who was to come in? Now, I wouldn't have confidence as Jay said, I would back him. I would be supportive of him, but at the same time, how can you be confident in a manager who's your fourth, fifth, sixth choice at the club in the state that the Rangers are at right now? For me, this is the best time for any manager to take the Rangers job, because at the end of the day, the only way's up now for Rangers with how we've been lately. I think the only way's up. So I think for me, this is the best time to take the Rangers job. And if that many people are rejecting us, I mean, we've had Sean Dyche first, some was back before. We then made Steven Gerrard, of course, recently, then Kevin Muscat just there, and even Danny Rowe as well, just before Muscat. So that's already probably four of our top targets now down the drain. Unless we happen to sack Thelwell and Patrick Stewart, which I don't see happening now. I do think that won't happen now until at least the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, going into this, I mean, my next choice would probably be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but I don't think he has the authority and he has the power in the dressing room. I think we need someone who the players are going to listen to be honest. And I'm not saying someone who's just going to shout and be angry and be this, be that, like what folk thought Kevin Muscat was going to be like. I don't mean that. I mean someone who's going to speak a bit of sense, someone who knows a bit, someone who's been there, done that in his managerial career. So, and I just don't see us getting that anymore. So I don't see us going forward much now. I mean, I'm not saying I see us getting relegated or I see us finishing outside of the top two or top three, whatever you want to say. But I don't see us winning many trophies this season, especially.
Just want to, very quickly, Jay, sorry, just want to come back and say the point I was making a couple minutes ago about the Robinson situation is that, and to be clear, I would absolutely take Robinson as a manager. Okay, I don't doubt his skills. When I said what the state we're in as a club at the moment is the fact that we've been rejected by 4 or 5 managers. We've got a situation where no manager wants to come to us. Okay, that's the point I was making. And yeah, I would take Robinson. However, what I'm trying to get across is the fact that any manager that in my opinion only, any manager that comes in right now is going to have that monkey over his back that he's not the first choice. And as soon as results start to go against that new manager, whoever it is, would somebody like Stephen Robinson have the mental fortitude or the past results in his career to stand up to that kind of pressure or scrutiny? Mm-hmm. Who knows? But I would take Stephen Robinson. However, the point I'm trying to get across, probably clumsily, is that when I say the state of a club, or that's where we are as a club, the fact of the matter is we're now going for somebody who's going to be a 4th, 5th, or even 6th choice. And that's where we are as a club. So it wasn't against Stephen Robinson personally, it was against the process and getting a new manager. So that's the kind of point I was making when I said we are as a club.
Yeah.
But also,
okay, that's fair.
But at the same time, right, we're getting our 4th, 5th, 6th choice manager. Like, what confidence does that give other players when they want to join this club? Because we need reinforcements, right? We need reinforcements in January. It's going to be it's a lot harder sell now than it would have been in the summer to come to this football club, right? Because of the decisions that have been made, the results have been really poor. I mean, and the recruitment has been absolutely woeful. So trying to get other players to come and join us at this moment in time is not going to be easy, to be honest. So we've got that issue to deal with. Going to some more comments here, we've got Stephen Lindsay. What the fuck are you saying? They would have a meltdown. We are a fucking shambles right now. Yes, we are indeed. But I always feel like, even though we are a shambles, if they are also a shambles, that would be, it sort of helps a little bit. If they're running away with it, winning every game, then it just hurts that bit more. Ade Oladipo, how did Shanghai Port play on Friday? Now they played on Friday and they won 4-3. I watched a bit of it. I didn't watch much, but really, 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 really interesting, high scoring game, which sort of got me excited because it felt like one of those and Muscat being one of those managers that will just you can score 2, but we'll score 3 or 4. That sort of football, that exciting football, which we've not seen in a while. So even after that game, I got a bit excited. And what I noticed in that game as well is that every time they conceded, they scored like straight away within a few minutes. So it was almost, when we can, our heads drop. But when Shanghai Port conceded, it's like bang, they were back into action and they went and scored a goal, and that is another thing I'm really excited to have at the club. You know, that mentality. Did you guys watch the game, Lewis? Did you watch it?
No, I did not. I was in my scratcher. I was in my bed. I did not watch the game. Absolutely not.
No.
I hate to say it, but no, I didn't. I mean, I seen the score, which I thought interesting. Scoring a lot of goals, but conceding a lot of goals. So the obviously the scoring a lot of goals excited me for Kevin Muscat coming in. Well, what I thought was happening. But it was a whole conceding 3 goals, which I didn't like. I mean, conceding 3 goals to second bottom in the Chinese league. I think that. I mean, that's equivalent of us conceding 3 or 4 or whatever like that to a team like Livingston. So it's what that was the only thing that worried me, to be honest.
Yeah. What about you, Cody? Did you watch it?
I was going away for the holiday weekend, so I kept checking the score, and at the end of the day, like I don't know much about Chinese football, so I couldn't make a comment on how good the other team were, or etc. etc. So at the end of the day, you know, his team are 1-1 away from winning the league. So you know, if we get a new manager in and we win every game 4-3, and we're 1 game away from winning the league come May, then I don't really give a shit, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. I mean, fair. Like the big thing is winning games. Of course it is, but I mean, at the weekend there, I mean, I seen some promising signs from Rangers, and I know I'm not really talking much about the game tonight, but I seen some promising signs from Rangers, especially in the first half. But then in the second half, we completely capitulated. So there was promising signs, but there was also worrying signs there. So it's fine to have a bit of both. A bit of both is, I mean, you're always going to have that. There's always going to be a negative to take out of pretty much any game of football. So, I mean, I do agree with the fact that if Kevin Muscat was to come in, we were winning every game 4-3, and we were a game away from winning the league, I would be absolutely delighted with that. But at the same time, if Rangers were conceding, say, 3 goals to a team like Livingston or St Mirren or Dundee, I mean, it is a worry for me.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, you never want to concede goals. I think the old saying is, you know, attack wins you games, but defense wins you titles. So yeah, but still at the same time, you know, I think before the Dundee United game, I'd looked at how long it took us to score 4 league goals, and it took us 6 games, but he's done it in the 1 game on Friday. So yeah, I would take him for his attacking, you know, intent. Just go to a few more comments now. Then Robert Binney, fan protest should be an empty stadium at the weekend against Killy. I don't really like the empty stadium fan protest. I much prefer the banners and to make a lot of noise. You know, the chants and make it so the directors and the people at the ground that are responsible for this awful season actually get to hear it rather than just see empty seats. What are your thoughts on empty stadiums and that sort of protest, Lewis?
Yeah, I don't like it. I didn't agree with the whole 55th minute walkout from the Union Bears before protesting. I think it was Philip Clement. So I don't agree with walking out your team. I don't think you can call walking out in your team supporting them. Yes, you need to get a message across, but I'm the same. I think you get your message across by going to the ground and having your voice heard. Because at the end of the day, Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell and even Calvin and Marath, they're not going to give a fuck about what's being said in social media, what's being said online, because at the end of the day, they're the experts. But they're going to care about if they're hearing 50,000 fans calling for Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell to be removed from the club. They'll care about that because that's more noticeable than, say, just walking out. Because, I mean, I think also with walking out, I mean, a lot of people are on the continuous credit card scheme, so at the end of the day, they're not going to really care as long as they're getting their money. So, yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't think you can call walking out in your club supporting them. For me, I'm not trying to say that I'm more of a Rangers supporter than someone else, or someone else is more of a Rangers supporter than me, because at the end of the day, we are all Rangers fans, and we want the best for Rangers. But I really strongly disagree with the whole walking out or not going to games. Don't get me wrong, I don't go to every game. I struggle to get to every game just purely because of my work and my personal life, etc. So, yeah, But I don't agree with walking around your club. Basically, that's the message I'm trying to get across.
Okay, we've reached about 54 minutes, 55 minutes. Gordy, one last question for you. What do you think is going to happen this week? Do you expect an announcement of a new manager this week, or do you think it's going to carry on for another few weeks?
I think that they'll probably go back and speak to Danny Rowe, to be perfectly honest. I think Danny Rowe does fit into that head coach category, and I think Danny Rowe's got not got enough experience or enough stature to actually say no, I'm in complete control. So that's why I think it'll be Danny Rowe. I think Danny Rowe ruled himself out because he didn't want to get rejected in favour of Muscat, and I think Danny Rowe's been on the radar for ever since Martin came to the club. Even before Martin came to the club, Danny Rowe was in the frame again. I don't think any head manager worth his salt with any kind of stature and experience in the game is going to come to Rangers right now. So I think we are looking at a Danny Rowe or a Danny Rowe-like figure.
Yeah,
and I think that'll be the next week or so.
Yeah, I think Thomas Leishman agrees with you as well. Danny Rowe is apparently on the plane to meet, which I assume is the owners. So yeah, that looks like it could be back on the cards. And Stephen McPhee believes that it says that he would take Big Ange. So we shall leave you with that comment. Thank you both for joining. It was a pleasure talking with Rangers to you both. We've hit 56 minutes. Thank you, everyone in the comments for contributing to the show, and everyone watching at home. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll be back throughout the week to bring you the latest news on all things Rangers. Cheers, both, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
We are the people.